hardest, lesser of two evils choice you've ever had to make. I was 19 when the police told me my parents were dying, and I had to decide what happened to my 16-year-old sister. They found me in my dorm room at 2 in the morning and drove me to the hospital where Haley was already waiting because she'd ridden in the ambulance with them after the drunk driver hit their car. They took me straight to Haley, who was curled up in a plastic waiting room chair wearing Dad's college hoodie and clutching the teddy bear from Mom's car. We held each other while she told me they'd died 20 minutes ago and the doctors tried everything. Then a social worker appeared with paperwork and started explaining our options like she was reading a recipe. Since you're legally an adult, you have 2 options, she said. You can petition for emergency custody of your sister, or your aunt in Colorado has agreed to take her. I need a decision by morning because your aunt needs to book flights and arrange time off work. My throat tightened because I couldn't process making this choice when they'd been gone less than an hour. The thing that killed me was becoming a parent at 19 with 0 preparation. I didn't know how to handle teenage mood swings or what to do when grief destroyed her grades. I'd be doing it alone while grieving myself. The social worker mentioned survivor benefits but warned they wouldn't be much and could take months. I made lists on hospital napkins while Haley slept on my shoulder. If Haley stayed with me, we'd keep the house, but I'd have to figure out property taxes and insurance and what happened when the water heater broke. I'd drop out and work full time just to keep the lights on, but she'd sleep in her own bed with her cat. With Aunt Diane, she'd have every advantage, but she'd also lose the last place our parents existed. Some investment banker would buy our house and gut the kitchen where Mom made pancakes every Sunday. The worst part was calling Diane at 4 in the morning. She kept saying the right things about family obligation, but her voice was tight with inconvenience. She asked if Haley was still having those anxiety issues, like mental health was a character flaw. When I asked if Haley could bring her cat, she said absolutely not because their son had allergies, and I realized Haley would lose Mochi, who'd slept on her bed since she was 8. I kept thinking about random things that shouldn't matter but did, like our tradition of watching terrible horror movies every Friday, or how she always stole my hoodies and I pretended to be mad but secretly loved it. If she went to Colorado, all those little things that made us sisters would disappear. She'd come back for holidays as a stranger who learned to ski and looked at me like the sister who chose college over her. But then I'd remember I was 19 with no business raising anyone. What if I screwed her up worse than grief already would? What if she ended up hating me for keeping her in a house haunted by our parents when she could have had a fresh start? The social worker kept checking her watch, but I was sitting there trying to play God with my sister's future while our parents' bodies were getting cold. The social worker found us in the cafeteria at sunrise after I'd spent the night going back and forth and holding Haley while she begged me not to send her away. I need your decision because your aunt is booking a flight. That's when Haley grabbed my hand under the table and squeezed so hard it hurt. Please don't send me away, she said, her voice cracked. I know I'm ruining your life, but I can't do this with people who think crying is weakness, so please, just please keep me. So I signed the papers right there on a cafeteria table. I chose to keep her not because it made sense, but because I was the only real family she had left. The social worker asked if I'd thought about how I'd manage financially. I'm not giving up anything that matters, I said, while Haley held on to me like I might disappear too. Reality hit hard. I dropped out and took a warehouse job for 16 an hour plus overtime. I learned about property taxes and fixing leaking faucets from YouTube. Some nights I'd find Haley sleeping on the couch with Mochi because her room felt too empty. 6 months later, I was drowning. I was behind on the mortgage and Haley had quit volleyball and barely spoke except to Mochi, who she carried everywhere. Then my manager offered me a supervisor position with benefits. Haley finally started making friends and letting Mochi just sit beside her instead of carrying him everywhere. A year later, we'd made the house ours. Haley painted her room purple and I turned Dad's office into study space. Diane called on the anniversary shocked when Haley made honor roll. After she hung up, Haley said, "I'm glad you kept me because at least here I can still feel them, and Mochi would have died without me."